Good morning and welcome to the Wifey Wake Up podcast. And this podcast, particularly this morning, is for those who are dreaming of being a wifey. And as always, these are lessons that I've learned in my nearly 24 years of marriage. And I'm happy to pass them on to you so you don't have to go through things the hard way. And you can basically fast track and have an easier time of it. And so let's get started. You may be wondering or feeling like you're losing yourself in your relationship. And it's interesting because I think that's a very natural feel. What you're feeling is it's like being in the ocean and you're feeling the undercurrent of waves, and it's just enough, and it makes you feel uneasy. You're not accustomed to the ocean, perhaps like me. I know just enough to be able to say that analogy. I live here in the smack dab in the middle, in the north of North America. Well, right in the middle, basically, because we're including Canada, right? But I know enough that like that sense, that undertow, that pull, maybe not the full undertow, but there's an ebb and flow, right? And it's not on the surface, it's underneath. That is a natural feeling, even though it feels disconcerting, because of course your natural instincts are kicking in and saying, whoa, if we get much more of this is going to be a dangerous situation. So I think that's one of the biggest keys that or the biggest things hopefully I can help you with, is tuning into those feelings and what are they actually saying? Because a lot of them are actually it's a natural reaction. It's the interpretation that's incorrect and not helpful. So here's how I want you to think about this: why you're feeling like you're losing yourself in a relationship. First of all, it's a very natural feeling. Doesn't that already take a load off, right? And the reason that you're feeling like it's a bad thing, first of all, it's a matter of our culture. So 20 some years ago, back when I had my very short dating career, because I met my husband, thankfully, rather quickly, got engaged and married rather quickly because I found the one, is that the internet was in its infancy. You could barely search for anything. There's hardly any information on it. And if you wanted to learn about dating, you basically relied on the dozen or so magazines that you could find at your local Barnes and Noble, or your girlfriends, your mom, aunt, someone in your vicinity that hopefully you're hoping also would give you good information. The problem is these days we are overloaded with information, and so it's hard to process. And you have these feelings going on, then you type into the internet, I feel like I'm losing myself. The internet validates, yes, you are losing yourself, and that's a bad thing. And I'm here to say it's not always a bad thing. You need to discern in two ways. The thing is, you're feeling that because you're committing more to the relationship than you feel commitment in return. So have you ever seen two drops of water as they approach each other and they become one drop of water? They will simultaneously kind of deform and then touch, and they go bloop and become one drop. Well, in this scenario, if you feel like you're losing yourself, you are conforming. You are the one drop of water. This one's staying stable, and you're the drop of water that is reaching out and deforming yourself and wants to join, but this one is not equally meeting you. So yes, you are losing your integrity, your sense of self, and that is an indicator. That is an indicator that you're not getting the commitment, the matched commitment that you need, because that's assuming that you want to have the next level relationship. And mind you, I'm always talking here about marriage versus dating. And I really encourage you to take things slow. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So you're deforming yourself to try to join with this other blob of water, right? Not calling him a blob, but you're both blobs in this sense. And you're stretching yourself and you're not getting that reciprocity. And so that is an indicator. You feeling like you are losing yourself is a proper indication that, wait a minute, things are not quite right. Now here's scenario number two. Scenario number two, I think, is rather common as well, because our society teaches that it's not okay to become that next stage. Like you always have to remain you. I got the idea honestly for this post or this podcast when I saw a post online about this topic, but it was actually accompanied by the phrase to become more you. Now the thing is, you're always you. And if you feel like you're less you, that's not that you're actually less you. It is an indication that you need to step forward into a new stage of life. And our society really does not, especially for women, encourages women to stay in stasis. Like you have to be this version of a woman, the woman who gets the education, gets the job, gets the house, lands the next level of job. But it keeps her in that frame and does not promote, does not essentially allow the progression into being a wife, to being a mother. And it's really demoted. Like this is not something to aspire to. It's not okay to evolve into this next stage of being a woman. And therefore, when you feel like you're being pulled in that direction, because for many of us, even though we're taught, I was taught this way, to go to college, to get all the degrees, all the stuff, be able to do everything that a man can do, you're taught to be that way, and therefore, but you still have that yearning inside of you to find your perfect mate, to find your other half, to become one. And that inner part of you, so this is, the water analogy again, but it's the inner part of you. Can you see the inner part of the water droplet reaching out, but the outer part of you is staying firm. And so the inner part of you is like, oh, please let us move to the next stage. And the outer part of you is resisting. And that's where we get to the ever wonderful metaphor of the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. And situation number 1 and 2, these both apply. You're feeling that you're losing part of yourself is an indicator that you need to step forward. It's not that you're losing a part of yourself. It's that you need to let go, likely, of a part of yourself or something in life. Remember, you were once that curious 9-year-old. You were once that awkward teenager. And if you hadn't let go of that prior self, if you thought, oh no, I'm losing part of myself, instead of thinking I'm becoming the next version of me, then you wouldn't remain actually that person. You'd be in a confused state, in a very awkward state. You would be in an adult body with a childlike mind and presence, or a teenager. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is, in either situation, take the step forward. Don't be afraid to come out of that cocoon and be that next version of you. Hi, Kevin. And that next version of you can be absolutely amazing, and trust that you need to become that next version of you. So whether you're in the situation, the relationship, where you are seeking more and you're not getting that reciprocity and you want to take it to the next level, hopefully you can have an adult conversation and just express that, instead of being like, I'm losing part of me, I'm lost, that will not relate to a guy. But if you say, I sense that I know that I want to be at the next level of relationship, have a very reasonable conversation like that. It's too much for this podcast to get into details, but if that is something that you'd like me to elaborate on, I certainly will do that. And also in that situation, it's absolutely imperative that you're not yourself going to the next level before you're getting that level of commitment. When I was a teenager, early teenager, before I started dating, my parents would say sayings like, it was even before I was had a boyfriend or anything, that stage where you're like, that's so weird. But they still instilled some very good principles in me, which I'm very grateful that it was early too. It was early enough where it kind of stuck in my mind. And this phrase, you might have heard it, and if you haven't, it sounds really weird, but hang with me, is why would he buy the cow if he gets the milk for free? Okay. The gist is, why would he commit to you if he's already getting all that he wants? Okay. And this happens in stages as well. And I know sounds terrible to be compared to a cow, but just get over it, because these analogies, these metaphors that come from nature, that come from a more traditional, earlier time in life, in our history, are so perfect. They help us see things from a different angle. And it absolutely applies today. If you are giving him more than you are getting the level of commitment, then you're going to feel like you're losing part of yourself, that you're giving up part of yourself, and it's not a fair bargain. And again, this is too much for this podcast, but if you'd like me to go into more detail about how to keep him interested without giving it all away, let me know, and I'd be glad to put together a few videos on that as well. And, I know it can be challenging because men have, there was porn and stuff like that back in when I was dating, but it wasn't like in everybody's pocket. In a phone is what I mean, right? And just readily available. So you feel like you're competing against all of that. Well, the right guy, of course, has to be ready, and you have to also be ready to move on. It's a tough matter of fact fact about dating, but you have to be able to say with reason, not just with dismissiveness, but with reason, know the few criteria that when to say next. Okay, that's enough on that tangent, because that's a whole nother topic. But again, if you'd like me to speak more on that, I'll be glad to. Just let me know in the comments. But last and not least is, perhaps you're feeling this sense of you're losing yourself because you're that second scenario of water droplets. And maybe you're even both maybe leaning towards each other, but it's that water droplet that, remember, the inside is like, oh, I want this. And the other, you're getting reciprocity, let's say in this situation. And so he is stretching and wanting to meet you, and your outer shell, let's say this is like your subconscious, the way you've been trained, is very rigid, but the inner part of you, which is the inner part of you, knows, oh, I want this, but you're meeting internal resistance, and you're having a hard time with that. That is going to take some retraining. That is going to take you being willing to bust out of the cocoon that is you and is your societal upbringing. I had to get over this even within my own marriage. So I knew, thankfully, even though I share this in another podcast, even though I was embarrassed to play dolls as a kid, or talk about marriage or having a family or any of that, still the inner part of me really, really wanted that. And so when I met my husband and we got engaged, and even though my family was not for it, because they wanted me to do the career path and go on that route, right? Many of you, I'm sure, have heard it and did it. They wanted me to get the degrees and do all that. The inner part of me was like, no, this is my opportunity. This is what I want. I want to become one. This is my whole point about the water droplets. When you both allow, you can then, and this is the marriage point, right? When two become one. And you will feel like you're losing yourself because you are becoming a new you. It's the caterpillar busting out, growing within the cocoon, right? Metamorphosizing within the cocoon and then busting out, and it's like, hey y'all, I'm a butterfly. I wanted to put a few other colorful words that might be funny in there, but you can imagine those too. And it doesn't go, oh my gosh, I'm not a caterpillar anymore. Of course, anthropomorphizing the butterfly. It's like, I'm at the next stage. I'm a butterfly. And that's what I want to encourage you to consider when you feel like you're, quote, losing yourself. Is it because you're not getting the reciprocity in a relationship and you're actually deforming yourself to get more of what you want, but you're not getting that match, you're that reciprocity reciprocity in the relationship? And is it time to have an adult conversation? And maybe then it's time to move on to a person who is ready for that next level. Or are you actually getting that match in your relationship, but it's an inner part of you that is desiring that unity to become one, where of course you lose part of you, you lose the old you to become a new you, just like that 9-year-old self, that teenager self, or a mother who becomes a mother for the first time will of course not be her prior self. When you get married, you are a married woman. It's different from being a single woman. And so maybe in that second scenario, you are absolutely desiring that, but the outer part of you, the training you've received, and it may even just be the lifestyle you have built around you, your career, your friends, your hobbies, that make it difficult, make the outer shell more rigid and not able to flex into becoming one, like those two droplets coming together with ease. And so with that second scenario, there's going to be some work to do, and but really the work is simple. It's letting go. It's allowing. It's envisioning that future you, and what does that look like? Who can she be? You'll of course still have aspects of the prior you, but how do you merge those two together? So maybe the metaphor here is you need to merge your droplets so that they are then joined, and then you can join with your future husband. So let me know, even if you're married, was this an issue for you? And how did you get over it? Which scenario was more your scenario? Situation 1, where you weren't getting the reciprocity, or situation 2, where it was more kind of your social upbringing and your inner programming? Or maybe there's a third scenario that you can present here. I'd love to hear from you. Please like, subscribe, share with a friend that you think this would be helpful for. Someone, I'm sure they came to mind, share it with them. And thank you so much. I love hearing from you all. So please leave a note. Let me know how this resonates for you. And have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.